Good morning, Mr. Hubler. Okay. We're at 5 after.
Okay. Let's say we get started then.
All right, well, 4.
All right, Andy. Thank you, and I appreciate all the efforts that the society has done to pull together this virtual mini-con for Ohio. You know, we were all disappointed in 2020 when everything went south on us, and we were all hoping by 2021 to be in a position that we could gather again in person, but we're not quite there yet. And again, we all strive to return to normality, and about the best that we can do right now is the virtual mini-con with high hopes for a better 2022. Having said that, our first presenter this morning is Mark Demaline. I've known Mark for a number of years. Mark has been retired since 2011. He's had a long career of 42 years in railroading. Of that 42, 35 of those years was with the B&O slash CSX. And he finished his career with the Wheeling and Lake Erie. And over that period of time, he's been doing clerical work. He's been doing sales and marketing, operations, director of short line activities, community and state relations. We're lucky that Mark has been involved in railroading in a hobby since 1970. And in that period of time, he has taken photographs. He has collected photographs and slides, and he is more than willing to share this collection. And Mark is one of the better photographers that I've had the pleasure of meeting. And Mark, we certainly appreciate your willingness to share what you gathered, collected, and taken with all of us. And on that note, I'll kick it over to Mark.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I hope everyone can hear me. And go to the share screen here.
You're coming through clear, Mark.
Can everybody see that?
It's up now.
Okay.
Yeah.
My presentation is going to focus actually on the images of the 4 Lake Erie branches of the B&O off the main line, Sandusky, Lorain, Cleveland, and Fairport Harbor. But I'll have a little bit, I'll start with a few shots on the main line, start in Chicago, and then from the west as we approach from the east, I'll have a few shots from the Washington and Baltimore end. But anyhow, this is a shot of the over the double doors on the outside of the B&O Roundhouse in Cleveland that I took back in 1975. And the Roundhouse, of course, is still there, operated or used by the Midwest Rail Preservation Group. And to start out here, we're in Chicago. This is just a sample, an original photographer unknown in Chicago, one of the 50 Pacifics at the servicing facility from the 1950s. And then a couple views of the Grand Central in Chicago. I like to start, the presentations with a little bit of a story or a trip, so we're going to leave from here. These are from my collection. And a view of the activity end here at the terminal, looking towards the station, train shed. And in the train shed, a couple of E units. And we're going to jump over to Willard, looking from the old footbridge to the west to the yard towards the humps, the engine terminal. This is a shot I took in 1987. And of course the Y at Willard, which is a really neat building, and they, of course, it was getting a little rugged, so they tore it down, replaced it with a new nice brick building, and of course they had that deal where the railroads couldn't operate the Ys anymore or affiliate, so it ended up going private, and it eventually, believe it or not, even though it was a lot newer than this one, it was demolished, so the site is now empty again. And this was on the south side of the east end of the yard. We're going to jump up to Sandusky. This was the B&O actually had piers here for grain and coal, ore, and it's now one of the piers is a park, a very nice small park that people can watch the sailboats and some of the Lakers coming in and out of the NS former Pensy coal terminal, which is to the west or to the left here. We're looking north. And of course, this originally was this is right along the harbor to the Cedar Point Ferry. The B&O would run specials, and this also was originally the east-west Lakeshore, Michigan Southern main line before they built the new main line through Sandusky to the south. This was the LS and MS, and then the B&O came up from Willard, and after the New York Central kind of more or less got out of here, they still would ship or move business to the paper warehouse, and that we're looking west to the west of here along the harbor, but at the end the B&O took over the operations, and this was the yard office originally for the B&O there in Sandusky near the harbor, and this was taken over by Conrail after the B&O had long gotten out of there. This is a shot I took in 1993. And here's a photo from my collection, a slide I scanned. We're looking towards the harbor. That shoreline park would be kind of behind that little small shed with the stuff on the shelf, and we're looking north towards the harbor, and you can see they had a lot of business, mostly that paper warehouse and a couple other boxcar customers. And you can see the home, the signal there for the branch of the Penn Central that still came up, and I'm not sure even if it was still used in '74. And the Sandusky Depot, before they tore it down, this was south about 6 or 8 blocks from the harbor, and there were attempts, to try to save it, but it was after there was a fire that pretty much did it in. This is taken in 1981 by Todd Miller, the late Todd Miller, whose collection I acquired. And we're moving south, but looking north, and this was interesting. This was the B&O Diamond looking north over the then Conrail main line, the ex-New York Central, south of town. And it was a diamond on a bridge, which was kind of neat, different. And then at Kimball, Ohio, here's the Sandusky local. And as you can see, while the Nickel Plate and N&W continued to improve their main, the B&O, it's surprising that cars didn't uncouple once in a while as they came over this diamond. Southbound, we're looking north. Here he goes across the diamond. These I took in May of '79. And here's what it looked like by September 1981. The home signal was still there, but it was gone. The main, a few ties. And here that same day in May, the locals coming in. He's gonna make a switch at the elevator there. This is at Monroeville, Ohio. And here he is. He's going back. He's going to pick up I think probably an ammonia tank car fertilizer. It's interesting. After the B&O left there, the N&W and then the Wheeling actually used the old interchange connection and served this elevator. And the line ends. That crossing in the background is U.S. Route 20. And here he is coming up to the home signal, the crossing with the N&W X nickel plate X Wheeling line out of Bellevue that goes towards Brewster and Pittsburgh. And of course, there was a joint depot at Monroeville, Wheeling and B&O. And then we're looking north, and that's the signal that the conductor was walking up to get that day. So that he of course came into Willard, and now we're gonna just take a shot or two on the main line heading east, and this is looking west at Nova, Ohio, in April of 1978, before the tower started to lean a little bit more, and of course was eventually shut down and only torn down a few years ago, even though it was pretty much derelict. And of course they had the siding into the Kent feeds. They had mainline siding off of the eastbound crossovers. And what we're waiting for us and a friend Jerry Dietzick on the right by the signal. And this shot was in one of the McFall books, eastbound. And of course it's just straight double track here with no sidings or switches or crossovers anymore. A little further east, the B&O original main line out of Lodi actually went to the south of here and through some kind of rugged terrain, followed a little creek valley, but of course the just beautiful viaducts that they built too. This one, a short one, then a high one west of here on the fill. And here's an eastbound in June of '77 when we're waiting for the Chessie Steam special. And just to make B&O fans happy, for the instead of the WM unit, here's an eastbound a year later behind two B&O units. So we get to Sterling, RU Tower for Russell, Ohio, but it's of course called Sterling. Even the town's called Sterling now. This is where the CL and W came into the main line. We're looking north, a little bit northwest. The Erie's in the foreground, the B&O's on the rear side of the tower. And here, unusual, Charlie Laird forgot to line the EL and the tower operator, and here comes a eastbound B&O, and he held up the EL. The dispatcher wasn't happy about that. And that on the right is a signal for the Y for the westbound leg of the Y of the Cleveland Lorraine line. And the last shot was in November '74. This was the same day. A couple of new Reading units working their way east. And of course, you know, I don't know if we, well, of course, it's not, everybody's muted, but a few people should know that this eastbound obviously has a couple of, at least a Lordstown set off for those auto rack cars that hauled the Vegas, the famous Chevy Vegas. Here he comes around the curve here. This is also November 30th, '74. And I have a couple of duplicate slides here from the late Phil Horning's collection. Phil shot black and white, and his father took slides. And Phil, of course, ended up with the slides, and he was kind enough to make some duplicates for, I think, Ron Spiga and myself, and I think a few other people. This is at Warwick, Ohio. But we're gonna go and follow the CL&W here from 1901. A message to the agent at Leicester. And I love the font they used. And when I was wearing my Wheeling Lake Erie hat, I reported to the president, and we took a high rail trip, and here we are coming across the bridge at Benwood over to Bel Air. And this is in 2005, which these may be the newest images. And as we came across, here's the old main heading west. And for those of you that saw the movie Unstoppable, all of those oil tanks and all of that in the middle of this Y were photoshopped in by the movie producers. And here we are heading up, heading actually geographically northwestbound. And here's a couple of shots from July 1992. Ron Spiga and I found out Larry Blanchard was the train master, and they were pulling up the Holloway, the CL&W line, and this is the rail train, and we spent a day down there taking various shots of him, and I was in sales then, and kind of talked to a few customers, and even the local operations people that wanted to keep the line saw some potential. And it turned out that the engineering department won out because they already had their savings and cost reports that they were using that welded rail to replace the mainline rail in I think in Alabama, but in Alabama, in the South Alabama, I think. Here he is at Freeport, Ohio. And Todd Miller shot of the Uricksville, Ohio depot where we crossed the Pensy. And at Dover, looking south on the course is a CL&W. And at Strasburg, Ohio, this is just a little bit, half a mile northwest of the I-77 interchange with Strasburg, north of Dover and New Philly. And the Dover local, north of Massillon, with a good-sized train on January 1981. I took this. And another shot of the Dover turn at Sterling in October of 1981. And a little earlier shot at Sterling, a westbound with a Jeep and 5 F7s. At the time, we wish the Jeep wasn't there, but now it's still pretty neat. And of course, the CL&W actually crossed here and went south, had a right of way that went south and then east over to Warwick, but they ended up, redoing that. And of course, by 1988, the EL was gone. Sterling was painted in Conrail Tower colors, the gray, and he had his little portable outhouse, and Sterling replaced the RU letters. And it was weird because Conrail kept an operator here for years, even after the EL was totally gone. And then they finally worked out some kind of deal where CSX advertised, I think they called it a train director or something, not an operator. So they gave it up for the last year or two. It was a B&O, a CSX employee here. And here we're actually, this is on the model board, and the view is you see to Lorraine, so it's looking at south is at the top, and that's the Y, and of course the model board still showed the EL. And back in the good old days, a Holloway man coming off of the east leg with GM50 on the point. And in 1981, a guy coming up from Holloway with coming onto the Cleveland Lorraine line, the CL&W off the main. We're looking east. And here's his caboose going by the Seville depot. There was a local gal that was active and got the TV stations and everything involved to save the depot, and got support, and the B&O at the time, I think it might have been Mr. Guest, that okay, we'll wait, and they gave her like a year, and she just disappeared. She was one of those people that move around and get involved in stuff, and anyhow, so that ended up getting demolished a few years later. We're looking north. And a few blocks north of there, here's another shot that Phil Horning's father took. This couple of blocks of street running. This is a westbound Lorraine job behind an EM1 coming through Seville, 1957. And at Leicester, EM1 taking on water. And the line to Cleveland is to the where the B&O hoppers are on the left, and we're looking southeast, and he's on the siding the line to Lorraine, where Lorraine's behind us.
Your key to get in.
And Leicester in 1981, January, when I first was there, I have another shot. The agent actually maintained, and some of the trainmen helped. The shrubs were all neatly trimmed, and it looked nice. But of course now the depot is still there, but the shrubs are gone, but it's still a pretty neat depot. And the Cleveland Main is to the right there. The rails in the snow, and Lorraine is by the train order signal to the left, the line to Lorraine. We're looking northwest. And about the last Chessie B&O train that I shot, because I was out of town with CSX from about 82 to late 89 here at Leicester on a rainy fall day, is westbound heading towards or Cleveland. And we get up, we're working our way towards Lorraine here at Grafton. And this building's still there, been used by the maintenance away guys for years. Of course, it's in, you know, in the CSX colors now. And you see the road crossing sign to the right. This was their interchange connection with the Big Four, which is behind me. At that time, this is 1979. It would have been early Conrail. And on a cloudy day in 1983, here's a westbound heading for Lorraine, coming across the Main Street in Grafton. And there's the Big Four Tower, which is still there. It was preserved and moved, and it's moved a couple, maybe 20 yards, 30 yards to the left and away from the main line, which is now the CSX main line. We're looking east. And another EM1 coming out of Lorraine, probably with a huge train of empties at BS Tower at Elyria, crossing the New York Central main in 1957. And this I picked up original, but it was not labeled, no photographer, so it's in my collection. I love that tower. And the B&O, the small freight house there was on the right behind the signal boxes, the maintenance away shed. Up at Lorraine here in 1977, July, we're looking west on the N&W's X nickel plate, and here's a switch job crossing the diamond, and that's of course the depot to the left, the joint depot at one time. But when I was in sales and back in Cleveland, I was over here and went up there one day, and the NS had pulled the diamond without notifying CSX. Not that there was any business left, but it was they never filed any papers or anything. And a shot from a friend, Bram Bailey, of one of the Alco's switchers at Lorraine Yard. We're looking east, and that's the drawbridge over the Black River. And this is from June of 1972. And a few postcard shots. We're looking south from Lake Erie is behind me, at the Lorraine docks, the B&O. This is on the west bank. The old drawbridge, the road bridge for Lake Road in the background. And of course, they had the special trains and the dedication ceremonies, 1948 for the new unloader coal. And I won't spend much time on this, but you see it can handle and dump 70-ton cars at a continuous rate of a car a minute. But the pan had a capacity of 125 tons, which obviously helped as the cars, the hoppers had larger capacity. And they had a pretty good dedication ceremony. Not only the mayor, but Roy B. White, the president, and of course George Love, president of the Pittsburgh Consolidation Coal Company, one of the ICC commissioners, and director of Office of Defense Transportation. But I'd love to find or see some photos of the B&O special they ran between Cleveland and Lorraine that day. And a newer postcard shot, kind of giving you an overview, looking north towards the lake from the road drawbridge there in Lorraine, from the looks like the 1950s. And an older postcard, also looking north. The interesting thing here is the tug Harvey Gold, which was at one point jointly owned by the CL&W, and then a couple, it got one of those deals where it had about 3 different people or companies involved, and it ended up being one of the Great Lakes tugs, and which the CL&W and then B&O shared in the in the costs of operation at Lorraine. And a 1960 slide from my collection, no photographer credit, showing how it looked in 1960. They managed to get some C&O hoppers in there. And a late shot towards the end, 1983, one of the 7400, I think SD35s at the docks. We're looking west. Now we're going to move back to from Leicester north. We're looking at a shot of Valley City, Ohio, the depot in 1960, Route 303, looking geographically north. And of course, Ron Spiga had some overhead aerial views. Of course, there used to be team tracks and that on the left. And it was a busy place at one time for local business. And that depot survives, moved a couple, maybe a mile or two west as the Valley City, Liverpool Township office, away from the railroad, of course. And back heading towards Cleveland on the CL&W, when I worked at Parma, they were making a set off and pickup, the 294 and into Cleveland, train 294. And so he had an F unit, so I climbed aboard and took a couple of shots. And here he is approaching the, this is, by the way, 1975. So this is the Penn Central Short Line Diamond, which is now the CSX main line, and through Cleveland. And when he walked up to get the signal, I got off, hopped in my car, and went further north to the road crossing for the American greeting card headquarters and center here. This is in Brooklyn, Ohio. It's only about 2 miles from the last shot. Here he is coming across the road crossing with a nice lash up. So we're going to move from the CLW over to Washington here in May of 1955. No photographer credit. Love I would assume that Cadillac was picking up or dropping off a congressman or somebody. Just a neat scene. And the roof of behind the monument there in flags there, as you see the roof of a PCC car. And of course, I again make it a little interesting. So we'll hop on the train here at inside Washington Union Terminal. This is a Todd Miller shot from 1980. And here, an original from my collection, no photographer credit, and checking with Steve Solomon and looking at timetables. This is, of course, at Harper's Ferry, but the westbound Chicago Express in October 1966. And a stop at, here at Pittsburgh. I always like this station here. This is a photo I took in 1990. And then a nice one of the nicer photos I've ever seen here from an original slide from August of '73 of the Grant Street Depot. I love the Baltimore and Ohio inset lettering on there. And we'll work our way west to Ohio Junction, where the B&O branch up to Warren, which came back in the main line at Newton Falls, Ohio, but also it was the Painesville Fairport Harbor branch. And here, crossing you see the Erie Tower in the background here, eastbound local in December of '76 that I shot at Warren. And then I was lucky enough, this is October 1981 at West Farmington on the Painesville line. My Dodge pickup there, I apologize, that's in the shot, but caught the Painesville job, and of course, you know, it had a WM unit on the point. And here he's coming at Middlefield, and it was kind of a hard line to photograph, you know, south of Painesville with, you know, it was treed and vegetation was in. There weren't a lot of like open shots, but here he is approach coming up the hill towards Painesville, and I think that was a distance signal at one time for the nickel plate crossing, or it might have also just been a grade signal. And here he is at the N&W nickel plate diamond. And then coming across the N&W at Painesville, we're looking east, of course. And then coming across, he's waiting for the signal, waited for a Conrail train here again, the same October 28th, 81. He's waiting at the home signal here at Painesville. And here he's crossing the five track ex New York Central XPC Conrail main, again looking east, obviously. And had to include that. And his caboose. And to the right corner, you see the corner of the Painesville, the power plant, and the B&O used to bring coal for that. It was jointly served, or at least through a switch. And then, of course, this was at the end of the day, and here the sun's kind of set. He took his time, and he's crossing the bridge into to get into the yard at Fairport. And the abutments are still there, but the bridge is gone. And a postcard shot of the brown hoist at Painesville, Fairport Harbor. See, there's the close, if you can read it, the close gun has a Baltimore and Ohio lettering on it. And another postcard from the East Bank. And this would be looking to the northwest. And of course, the B&O had piers on this side of the river too. And Todd Miller was there in 1985 after the line had been torn up. We're looking geographically south, and this is where the B&O yard office, the Fairport yard was there, and the remnants of the diamond and signal there for the crossing with the FP&E. And now we're looking to the northwest. You can see the diamond, some of the rail was still in. August 85 on a rainy day. And so we'll now move over to Akron, the old yard office at Akron Junction. And the yard job at Akron, the coal dock on the left. And they used to keep standby steam locomotives for the passenger trains here. And the famous story was that one of the old road foremen, Eddie Getz, he was a hostler. And one of his jobs was to keep the engines ready, and he was handling loading coal in the tender of the standby locomotive one time, and lost control there, and ended up covering the whole tender with coal. And then Akron Union Depot, 1906 postcard. We're looking geographically south, and of course this is the area where the B&O used the Pensy between Akron and Warwick, and then of course the Erie was through here as well. And looking in the other direction towards the northeast, this is a pre-World War I. And here's of course, the depot was to the left behind my left shoulder, and here's the westbound. This is the train they used to call the Rabbit out of the VW plant in PA, and of course, you had auto parts cars on the head end. And this is I think the winter, January of 1981. And of course, at JO Tower in Akron, the B&O / CA&C Pensy PC crossed the EL, and there's the model board that Todd Miller shot. And the Union Depot, which replaced the old one, this was south of the new one, or Railroad West. And here's a postcard from 1950. It after the depot was closed and sat for a long time, the University of Akron bought the property and the depot, and I never bothered to take a current shot because they radically altered it. To me, it looks like something out of a Star Wars movie now. They added all kinds of goofy concrete extensions and stuff to it. So, but that's how it looked. And here's an interior shot from 1950. And this is a shot of number 7 from April of '71, taken by Peter Clapper. And this was the Diplomat, former Shenandoah, that they renamed. This is Train 7. And from the late Charlie Parsons, this is the last, April 30th, 1971, the last number 7, the Diplomat. I liked how they moved the B&O Herald from the top of the door to the bottom. And a westbound a little south of downtown, coming by the EL yard there on it's out near South Street, and this is from August of '76, one of my shots. And this has all changed. The EL's gone, that property's been developed, and it's basically a double track main through here now. And now we're going to continue here on the CT&V. Of course, the Valley, which is it was known, the Valley Railway. There's a postcard view of their depot. And I was lucky enough in the '70s. There was he called it Museum Antiques, but at the west end of Lakewood, Ohio, where I lived, west side of Cleveland, there was a shop called Museum Antiques. And there was a fella who was selling off he had some of his own, and then I think it was his grandfather or great grandfather had worked for the Valley and then the B&O, and I picked up this Valley Railroad lantern from him. And we're going to start now at the south end of the CT&V sub, and here Mineral City, Ohio, from 1982. This is the freight house. We're looking south, and they had just a really neat trestle. We're looking north that came across, and behind me, it went to a switch that actually faced west. In other words, it came out so you would go westbound, which originally went to the original Valley Junction west of here, where they interchanged with the Wheeling and Lake Erie, but it was in the valley. And then for a Army Corps Engineers dam project, they relocated it out of the valley. And but the B&O kept it because they it was like a switchback. They pulled west and then went to the oil terminal to the east of here, down the valley to my right, to the east. And the trestle's gone, of course. Now we're back up at Akron on the CT&V here in September of '75, when the Cauga Valley lines were just starting out, which became the Cauga Valley Scenic Railroad and the National Park. And this is actually where the Akron depot for the CVSR is, about where that around where that gondola is right now. And this has all been developed. There's condos to the right. And for another view, in 1977, here's a Chessie Steam Special at the same location. And if we cross the roadway on the bridge, here's an eastbound coil steel train out of LTV in Cleveland in August of '82, kind of towards the end when of the B&O's era on the CT&V line. And then a regular for a few years was the annual Barnum and Bailey Circus train. Here we are near Everett, south of Peninsula, Ohio. Early morning, November 1974, westbound or northbound circus train. And of course, this is all part of the Cauga Valley National Park now and the CVSR. And here at Peninsula, he stopped and they unloaded all of the circus animals. There was, during this era, there was what they called the Coliseum. To the west about 2 miles was a Coliseum which was home to the Cleveland Cavaliers and hockey and ice capades and Disney on Ice. And of course, when I was with Chessie, we had a loge there, and we could use it for take customers. But when it wasn't used, because a lot of customers, unless they had kids, didn't want to go to Disney on Ice, so they would offer it to us just to use the ticket. So I took my wife and then baby girls to see the Disney show and all that a couple times. But anyhow, this is again November '74, and here's a little bit older view. We're looking north here, and another postcard. You can't see it well, but it shows river, railroad, and canal between Boston and Peninsula. We're looking south towards Peninsula, and you can see the canal, a river, and a train heading up towards Cleveland. And I was able to, well before I found the postcard, I was able to take this shot. Of course, this is the Ohio Turnpike there, but this was again in 1975, the Cauga Valley Lines train heading towards Cleveland behind the ex-GTW 4070. And further up the valley here in March of '74 is the eastbound GM50 on 192, the Cleveland Newcastle turn. Back when there was 16-hour and 14-hour days, they actually were able to run Newcastle to Cleveland, set off their train, tie on to the eastbound, and head back towards Newcastle. This is at Jate, Ohio. And a shot that everybody always tried to get through the years before the trees grew up. The National Park Service won't allow any trees to be cut down. Here at Brecksville, Ohio, under the Route 82 bridge, here's the southbound early CVSR train behind one of the ex-Canadian MLW ALCO units. And now we're on the Interstate 480 bridge. Back in the old days when it wasn't very busy and you could actually the berm was wide enough to pull off. We're looking south. Here's the westbound Chessie Steam Special, again June '77. And a little further north, there's the 480 bridge abutments in the background. Here's at Willow or Independence, but Willow, Ohio. Here's a late train 197 out of Newcastle behind a trio of F units. And of course, for decades, that Goodyear sign was a landmark. You could see it as you came down I-77, Route 21. We're looking south here, and Goodyear eventually took it down, but was glad to get this. And a little further geographically north, looking south here in 1975 is the Cuyahoga Valley line coming under then in '75 it was the PC bridge, which was single track because of the weight restrict. They didn't want to put too much stress on it, and of course that's now the CSX main line. But this is what they call the Marcy Trestle, but over the Cuyahoga Valley. A friend and I walked out on it, which I wouldn't do today. And then coming into Clark Avenue Yard here, the receiving yard is a guy coming in with a SP unit, a clean B&O Jeep 40-2. This is totally changed. That's a huge J&L finishing mill. We're looking southwest, and if you were standing here today, you'd see the backside of what they call Steel Yard Commons, which is a shopping complex which has a Home Depot and Walmart, or one of those couple of other stores, a couple of fast food restaurants. So, and then on the old Clark Avenue Bridge at Clark Avenue Yard, here's this, and this is I put these in as kind of an overview. There's the finishing mill for J&L in the background, the blast furnace is on the left, and this is the receiving yard at Clark Avenue, and he's on, I think, track 27. That was the Otis track, the close track with no cars on it. And all the trailers, the B&O had a circus-style ramp next to the car shop for years. And a going shot, another gives a good overview of Clark Avenue Yard. There's the scale track and yard tracks full of cars, coal cars, a lot of steel business for LTV on the other side of the river. And the Clark Avenue Yard job, this is April '75. I took this. I was working second trick, but always ended up getting bumped to third trick. And the lower yard job, which had two of the MU-able ALCO switchers, they used these to pull the Holloway coal drags up to the interchange on Whiskey Island at the lakefront. And that was regular business, Holloway to Cleveland, and then interchange that would go to one of 3 CEI power plants along the lake, all on Penn Central and then Conrail. And the engine facility and service facility tracks at Clark Avenue at the north or west end, as they called it. The roundhouse is to the right, and of course, you can see the service tracks that you wanted to make sure and wear 2 pair of shoes to wear one pair and have one pair, another pair in the car for when you worked in the yard or even went out to take a few pictures. And you've got the Newburgh South Shore drawbridge in the background on the left, and just above the rear of the second F unit, the B&O bridge over the Chicago River is down. And in this is 1980, and a nice gal, attorney for the Chessie, Pat Vale. She was a good egg, and she said, all these new lawyers, this is one of those time periods they're hiring a number of new attorneys, law department employees, and she arranged to get a display train, as they called it, parked at Clark Avenue. So she brought all the new attorneys and a couple old ones and a few other people, and then the train master and I think one of the yard, they had one of the yard trainmen came and gave them a tour of the train and explained what each car was, because they were dealing with lawsuits and legal matters, and never knew what the actual rail cars and railroad looked like. So I applauded her for that. Now we're going towards the lake here. We're right at the west end of Clark Avenue. That's the N&W Wheeling crossing the Diamonds, and the N&W once in a while would run detour trains. This is February 1980, and the N&W had rights from their 55th Street yard for interchange traffic over the B&O for this short distance, and he's coming across the B&O Bridge 460, and you see he's got a train. He's got, I think, a few new Seaboard units behind the N&W power, and it was I forget what the thing was. There was a derailment or something that they were detouring the road trains this way, and it was a heck of a move because they had to back down a hill with this thing, and then come down through over the bridge and then over the connection. And here's another view. The foreground is the Newburgh South Shore Bridge, and the background is B&O Bridge 460. The Newburgh South Shore, which is one of the U.S. Steel roads, they quit using this early on, and it sat for years. And then I don't know if Ron Spiegel went down or has photos, but he said they ended up pulling this bridge back with cables and then demolished it. The B&O bridge is 460 still there in service, although they converted it to one of the first then remote drawbridges with the controls. The tower was behind the NS and Newburgh South Shore Bridge in the foreground, but they tore down the tower, and the controls are now in a box on the yard side of the river, which is to the right. We're looking south. That's the east bank, and there it goes. These are from 1990, and there was a lot of business along the river. This was the U.S. Steel, American Steel and Wire blast furnace around the curve from the B&O and NS. This is why the Newburgh South Shore had their drawbridge to serve this plant. And for the bicentennial here in June of '76, they painted their Hewletts red, white, and blue. And a black and white from the 1970s of what they called the Fruit Yard or Eagle Street Yard, looking north. And the hoppers are probably a combination of Holloway, but also for the right in the right corner there, you see the transload, the unloader for the Cleveland Electric Illuminating CEI steam plant. This was a power plant that furnished steam, I think, and some electrical power to all the office buildings and retail stores and stuff downtown Cleveland. And here's a view from 1989. The fruit yard, when I was working at Clark Avenue, the yard master would have me call fruit growers when the car department would check the cars and find any of the reefers were low on fuel. And here's a couple of original slides I picked up taken in April '65, and we're looking towards the south, a little bit southeast, and it's another view to the lower right. You see the CEI plant, the B&O hoppers on the Eagle Street or Fruit Yard tracks, and then in the center is a inbound New York Central probably passenger and mail train. And to the left, where you see the new Central Market and Sheriff Cold Storage, that's now the site of Progressive Field, where the Cleveland Indians play, and then of course the Cavaliers are in their huge arena right in this area as well. And in the background, you see the mills and the American Steel Wire and mill, and then of course the rest to the southwest of there is shrouded in smoke. And looking a little closer here is the B&O. It's hard to tell, but the Cleveland Union Terminal tracks are at one level, the coach yard. Then the street, Canal Road, is below that where the cars are, and then below that is the B&O. The B&O that went to Sherwin-Williams and down to the lakefront, and of course this Columbia building, the building with the Central National Bank, was also the Erie Lackawanna headquarters. And the B&O depot, I worked for the agent's office here for a little while as a mobile freight agent, and it's still there. It's on the National Historic Registers. Sherwin-Williams owns it, but there's been talk where they want to expand the trail and to what they call the towpath trail up to the lakefront, and they want to make this a joint, like, convert it to like office and cafe and park office and all that. And this is from 1976, and it's still there, but it hasn't been used in years. And the white small square marble tile in the entranceway has CT&V letters in it, and you can see this corner column. Of course, there was a fire, and it used to have a different, peaked roof on it. But you can see where the B&O letters were on the corner of this close turret at one time. And another view, there's the depot. We're looking west, and there's the B&O freight house there with all the box cars on the left, and the head house, which was a really neat building. And then they had the team track and that crane that's right above the B&O depot there. And then the old Bridge 463, before they put a new bridge that was controlled with the control tower and the jackknife on the other side. And in the right side is the about the middle on the right edge that was the Erie ore dock. And this lasted, the freight house lasted for quite a while, and then then it was torn down and used for a parking lot. And that last shot was from maybe 52. This one's from 1950, looking west and a little northwest. You can see the other B&O bridge is actually down, and then that's over towards Whiskey Island. You can see the ore docks on the lakefront, and then the interchange tracks to the New York Central, Penn Central, and then I think early Conrail were up on the lakefront. And the B&O lower yard job coming back with an empty box car, looking east over Bridge 463. And then I worked 464 for a while. It was a 4 o'clock job, and often I'd work 12 hours when they would be taking the Holloway coal drags and 2 cuts up to the island. That's the Conrail. Well, this is in 1975. Conrail PC drawbridge in the background. Here's what it looked like in 1986. There's the tower. That's a Todd Miller shot from 1973. And the bridge is still there, but the tower's gone. Had a coal stove. There are cold nights on the lakefront there at 1 and 2 in the morning. At Ontario Stone on the dock on the Whiskey Island side, north of the drawbridge. There's a couple of units which I think they outlawed and left the power here. And what they would do once in a while, when the island, the two interchange tracks were full, and there was no other way to get around on the other track, they would send the B&O job across the river to cross over to be able to get back to the switch to get onto the B&O and come back across. And so this is from the bridge tower. And then, as Ron Spiga knows, they'd even send them west all the way almost out to Cleveland Airport once in a while to cross over. So crazy. This is in 1975, April. And the lower yard job, again in 1975, over near the B&O depot. He's underneath, I think, the bridge there, and he's I think Gus Roth and his crew went over for beans there at Gus's favorite little restaurant. And I didn't want to not include, just to let you know, this is a group. We had a B&O golf. There was enough people working at Clark Avenue that we had, and there's nobody there now, that we had enough people to have a B&O golf league, and it included the short guy in the middle with the glasses with Bob Burkhart, R.O. Burkhart, the train master, who's what do you call it? His bark was worse than he was actually a nice guy. The striped green shirt was the agent Frank Borsotti, who quit and became a car dealer. Next to him, the short guy in the black shirt is John D. Hill, second trick yard master. Bill Book on the left in the yellow shirt, he was an agent, and his father had worked for the B&O. And two of the best guys, the Charlie Livingston, who passed away 2 years ago in the G&B hat, was the yard master on third trick, and he's sitting on his best buddy Frank Castrucci, who was a car knocker. And then the rest of the guys, I know who they are, and my ugly face is in there. This is about 1973. And with that, maybe we'll show there's another original at Chicago. We'll leave, hopefully this wasn't too boring and didn't put anybody to sleep. And at Lorraine, I don't know who put that graffiti on, but Missing My Baby, that's on the overpass at Lorraine, one of the B&O overpasses. And that's it.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for sharing all of those photographs that you've taken and all of those photographs from your collection. The only thing that made it better was your knowledge of the line and being able to share that with us today. Does anybody have any questions for Mark?
I don't have any in the chat.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you.
Thanks.
For
yeah, if anybody, yeah, and I apologize for any errors were mine, or my memory is a little rustier than it used to be. So they can get a hold of you or me, and I'll help out. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you, Mark, for
Thanks, Mark.
stepping up and putting this together for us. It was put together in a short period of time. Certainly appreciate your efforts to do so. Great program.
Thank you.
We're going to
Michael-
take go ahead.
Yeah, 10-minute break. Take a 10-minute break.
Yes, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll all get together then at 10:25, and we'll